So Jamie, who is Jesus to you?
Jesus was the doorway from the world I was in to the kingdom of God world, another realm that I'm meant to be in. He's my redeemer. He's brought me from 12 years being in the grave to life eternal.
That's incredible. Tell me a little bit about what that looked like. You said 12 years in the grave. What did that look like?
Well, after high school, my dad had passed away in a tragic accident, and he was a pastor. And after I had heard everything that had happened to him, it just spiraled me out of control. I got mad at God. I came back home, and I was already smoking pot and dabbling in pain pills, oxycodone and Ruckusets and stuff. And so I came back to Tennessee, and I started picking up meth and heroin. And that lasted for a good 5 years. And then the last 5 years of my addiction was an extreme addiction of fentanyl, to where I had a house inside the city, multiple cars, a fiance at the time, to having nothing, no jobs. I burnt a lot of bridges, and it got to the point to where my mom wouldn't even let me come around because one Christmas I was over there, and I was on fentanyl. I was dealing fentanyl and getting big fronts to support my habit as well, and pay for the front I was getting. So I was nodding out over there at Christmas, and I had a little 4-year-old niece reach her hand in my pocket and pulled out a baggie of about 500 fentanyl pills. So after that, I wasn't welcome around there anymore. Of course, my own doing, and so I started living in abandoned transfer trucks around town, and then that was for 2 years, and there comes a point to where the Bible says there'll be a day that my people will hear my voice, and there was a day that I heard his voice. I woke up and I'd burnt bridges. Mom didn't want me around because I'd been robbed or blind. I'd robbed people I didn't know, had no remorse, and so basically I had adapted what I call spiritual leprosy. Nobody wanted me around. I was unclean, homeless, addicted, lost, and dead. And I remember after getting jumped for owing a big amount of money to a drug dealer, I went to sleep one night and I asked God, I said, God, what do you want me to do? And I want to say this. In my addiction, I would say I believed in God, but I never said the name Jesus Christ. So I was talking to a God that was the God of this world, not of the kingdom of heaven. And he told me, he said, get up and do your normal routine. Go and see what you can get, find, get your high. And it was a Sunday morning, and I got up and I walked through town. It was 11:30. I went to the liquor store. I was asking people for money. I see my stepdad there. He turned me down. And I thought to myself, there'd been multiple times I would go to church, and my mom would be at church, and she'd take me home because I showed up. And she would think I was putting forth the effort. After 5 years, I heard her begging me to go to rehab. And multiple times, I would take advantage of that, and I would go home with her. And for 3 days, I'd stay there, and I'd get fixed and get what I could get and go disappear. Well, that morning, after leaving the liquor store, I said, well, I'm going to go to church. My mom will be there. I can go home with her, eat, shower, probably find some money. And I got to church, and my mom's vehicle was nowhere to be found, so I sat out on the portico, and this would be where I experienced Jesus. I want to call it a theophany. He manifested himself to me through a guy named Pastor Joey Kincaid, a great saint of the church. And this man came out here during service and had 2 bottles of water. And he asked me, he said, what's going on? And 5 years, my mom's been begging me to get help, go to rehab. And I turned her down. I tell her I don't need it, And I just look at Joey and I say, I need help or I'm going to die. And it was just God, you know, God forced me to say that because me being stubborn, I would have never said that. And he looked at me and he said, they're doing an altar call right now. And I just got through praying with your mom. She's been up there praying that you walk through these doors, no matter how dirty, how stinky you was. He said, I'm going to go get her. And he goes and gets her and they come out and they take me in there to the lead pastor, Pastor Zach Davis of Hillcrest Church of God. And he calls around. And one reason why I have been denying going to rehab is because they had offered me help, but it was in Arizona or Florida, out of state. And I did not want to go out of state. I was stubborn about it. But that guy Pastor Zach came out there and he said, I've got a place for you to go to in 3 days. If you'll stay with your mom, they'll take you. And he goes, it's in Cleveland, Tennessee, and they'll allow you visitations with your mom and stuff. And that's one reason why I didn't want to leave state, is because even though me and my mom didn't have a great relationship, I felt like if she died, I might really go off the deep end. And so they came out there and talked to me and got me in rehab. And this is how amazing God is and how He works. My whole childhood, I was took to church, Baptist church, raised Baptist, and so I was in church, not knowing my dad as well as I did. He was a pastor, and my grandfather was a pastor. So church was talked about, scriptures was talked about, Jesus. The ones that drug me to church as a kid was Joey, Kincaid, and Becky, the one that came out there and talked to me on the porch. And now, after everything's said and done, Joey and Becky are mine and Sarah's marriage counselors. So that's amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah.
But I went to rehab, and this whole journey has been nothing but a faith builder. And I went to rehab. I stayed there a week, and I started getting in my feelings, and I called my mom, and I was making up every lie in the world. I said, come pick me up to the church. They got bed bugs. They got lice. COVID's going around. And this is 2023, and you know, COVID wasn't as active as it had been. So making up all these lies. Mom said, no, if you leave, you're going to be stuck in Cleveland. So she said, I wish you'd stay and pray on me overnight and see how you feel in the morning. So I stayed. I woke up feeling like crap. My body aching, fever, shaking. Took a test, I had COVID. So that was me taking it. God said, you ain't going nowhere. I've got you right where I want you.
Yep.
That week, quarantined where everybody's going out on the work cruise, and Bishop had a food truck at the time. I was quarantined to bed, so I started reading the Bible. I started writing down scripture. And then I got to Exodus 14, verse 13 and 14, where Moses is telling me, you know, don't be scared, stand still. These Egyptians you see today, you'll no longer see again forever. The Lord will fight for you. You need only be still. And in that moment, I knew that God had me right where He needed me. So I committed, and I stayed a whole year. And one other thing that helped me force myself to commit, because it says the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. After I woke up with COVID, and midweek, after reading the Bible, I go to sleep. And in my dream, I hear, Jamie, I've seen what you've done for Satan. Now show me what you can do for me. So I woke up thinking, He's seen everything I've done.
Yes.
I'm going to be held accountable for that. He said, show me what I can do for him. He's giving me a redemption story. So I really committed, and I stayed a year. Usually in that program, for 9 months, you give up your phone and you work with them to pay, because it's a free program. It's called the 180 Center through the South Cleveland Church of God under Bishop Edwin Lipsey. And so you give up your phone, your rights, basically, and it's a humbling process. I did that. You're not supposed to get a job till 9 months in. I started getting to go to Operation Compassion, which is a disaster relief ministry through Westmore Church of God. I started helping out there, volunteering for the rehab. They was getting a donation for our help and stuff. And 6 months into the program, they called Pastor Lipsey and they tell him, man, right before Jamie came, we prayed for somebody that could work on forklifts. We prayed on somebody that could help us do a warehouse layout. They was writing down inventory, hard copy on pen and paper. They didn't have no virtual systems, and they was praying on it. And then pastor sent me out there to try it. A week went by. They called and they said, "We want to hire Jamie." And pastor said, he's only been here 6 months. He can't have a job until re-entry, 9 months in. And pastor said, "Well, let me pray on it." The next day he called him and he said, I'll let y'all hire him if he agrees to, since it's a free program for the next 3 months, his paychecks go to the 180 Center. That'll be a blessing for everybody. But that gives him job security. And I keep his phone for the 3 months until he hits reentry. I agreed to it because I seen that, I wouldn't have to look for a job at reentry. I'd already be getting paid, and I would already be training. So through that, they've brought me in, and ever since that, we took Operation Compassion from being on pen and paper to on a barcom system virtually, where everything's easy to keep up with, everything smooth. It's great. I really don't know how they was doing it before that, and they'll tell you they don't know how they was doing it. But so I got that. That was a blessing. And from that to present day, Monday I took position of warehouse lead of Operation Compassion.
Wow.
And I ain't been there but right at a year. So
That's awesome.
that's a blessing. But I got out of rehab, and I tell you, Jesus Christ is the only person that saved me, first and foremost. But without the hands and the feet or the great tool of a rehabilitation center, I would not have met Jesus Christ.
Yes.
So going through that, it really grew me into who Christ had wanted me to be from the beginning of time. Mm-hmm. And I've got a whole new mindset on things. I've never, like I said, I never said Jesus Christ in addiction. I talked to God, but it was the God of this world. I deeply believe that only because I never said Jesus' name. And I would get what I want, and that's the only reason why. But, I've sacrificed everything. I've humbled myself, and I've got more now spiritually than I've had back then materialistically. And but for him to reach down, send some guy to talk to me and to reflect Jesus to me so miraculously that it touches me in an instant that I say I need help. After 12 years of stubbornness, I can't turn my back on that. I can't. Matthew chapter 8, Jesus comes to a leper, and the leper says, "Lord, if you will, you can heal me." And before Jesus even says anything, he reaches out and he touches that leper who hadn't been touched in years, not even by family members, not wanted around. Everybody ran from him when he came around. But Jesus reached out and touched that man. And to me, Matthew chapter 8 played out for me on that day that Pastor Joey Kincaid came out there with 2 bottles of water and sat down with me. So
It's beautiful.
that's how I met Jesus, and that's what Jesus has done for me. He's delivered me from the strongholds that was holding me. And I don't deserve any of it. There's nothing I could ever do. There's nothing I've ever done to earn or deserve anything he's given me. And he just keeps giving and giving and giving. And I'm not saying that bragging on anything that I'm receiving, but that he is giving. He's a faithful and able God, and he sees me for who I am. He knows who I was, but he don't care about that.
That's right.
He does not care about that. One of those greatest blessings in my life, and it is a daily faith builder, would be my brother-in-law, Brendan, right here. He's went through the same thing I went through. I'll let him speak on that. But this man gets up every day. He's incorporated his own business. He's went from secular to listening to J103 to the Bible app while he's mowing to working as if he was working for the Lord. And I would like him to tell you how God's brought us together and what God's done in his life.
Yeah.
If that's all right.
Yeah, Brandon, I'd love to hear from you. Tell me Tell me a quick version of your past and then how you met Jamie. And
Well, mine was a little different than his. I didn't go to no rehab or nothing, but I was selling drugs and, just trying to, feed my habit. And I had a stepdaughter, and my wife, she was my girlfriend at the time. And we moved my whole family away, just all the way to Florida, just to get away from here. And I stayed gone for a year. I got a good job up there, and I've always wanted. I have a stepdaughter, but I always wanted a kid. And we'd been together 5 years, and I prayed and prayed for a child. And it was like as soon as I made that decision to move and change, it wasn't 2 months, 3 months when we were in Florida and she was pregnant. But we come back, and through addiction, kind of like what Jamie said, I always believed in God, but I didn't know who Jesus was. But I moved back, and I started working restaurants. That's what I always done, and I just wanted to start something for me, for my family. So I started a lawn care business, and I was very blessed. In my first year, I had 20-something yards, and this is my second year, and it's just going really good. And then, I wanted to get my family into church, and we just never, we tried churches in Florida, and we didn't find one we liked. Then we came back here, and her sister, Miss Jamie, and then me and him got together. At first, he didn't talk to me much. I was like, who's this guy, Like, what the heck? He don't talk? And then he finally got comfortable with me, and just boom, we're like brothers. But he's helped me out a lot, just with telling me about Jesus and the stories and getting me in the Bible and reading. We get together every week and read as a family. And we've been a blessing on each other's life.
It's amazing.
God's been good to us. God has been good.
That's so cool. I love how God took two broken families, right?
Right.
And brought you together and spiritually just blessed that. And to hear you're reading the Bible together as a family, like, what a blessing.
Yes.
That's really awesome.
July 12th of 2025 for this year, I married the helpmate that God had for me, the one who lifts me up and encourages me, the one who has my back no matter what, but also holds me accountable when I'm in the wrong. She doesn't condemn me. She keeps me straight. She keeps me from approaching that broad road that I was on, and keeps me going towards that narrow gate that I'm headed to.
That's awesome.
And it's just amazing. He's gave me my wife. I've always wanted a kid. I thought, God, if you give me a kid, that would change my life, And I've never been able to have kids, and I know now that that's not to blame God. He knows I'm not ready. Well, July 12, 2025, as I gained a helpmate, I also gained a daughter. So, and everything's just been great. We're growing in church. I'm full-time in Operation Compassion. I serve 3 services every other Sunday at Hillcrest Church of God on the greet and usher team. Me and Brandon attend covenant classes. While at Operation Compassion, I bring 3 rehab guys from the 180 a week with me to help out, to talk to them, to pour into their lives. And Brandon, for instance, he prayed to God the other day, God, who do you want me to help today? And as soon as he got done praying, there's a man walking down the road. He picked him up and let him work and paid him for the day, fed him.
Awesome.
So, and us being obedient to the Lord, he is growing us into his kingdom and into the works he needs us to do before we enter glory. Like I said, I've got a promotion Monday by the grace of God that I never would deserve. I should never be in charge of $1 million worth of product anywhere after the lifestyle I've lived. I serve in a church when the last place God should ever want me is in his church, but he welcomes me with open arms. I got invited recently to become partners with Remnant House, which is a men's discipleship program and recovery program in Englewood, Tennessee. The pastor over at Brendan Strickland attended the same 180 Center I did years before me. And I had been battling with God, not battling, I had been praying to God and battling with myself over not getting an answer about, God, I've got clean, I'm working in your will, I'm doing kingdom things. Do you want me to go to school and learn theology, or what do you want me to do? And I hadn't told nobody this. I'd applied for some schools and checked out some numbers and didn't like how some of the pastors didn't ever want to meet with you, and I didn't like that. If you're going to be going into that, you need to be having face-to-face meets, I believe. But so out of nowhere, this pastor hits me up and he says, Jamie, I've been watching your journey. And he goes, I asked God, he said, I'm going to be building something for the kingdom, and I'm building a board. And I've asked God what he wants me to do for the board. And he said he needs some heralds on the board to proclaim the news of the program and the kingdom work we do. And he says, and he said, God told me that I don't need somebody that has theology. I need somebody that had a theophany. And God said, that's you. He said, you've never been to school, but you had a radical change.
Yes.
He said, you've been in scripture since that radical change, and you're pouring into lives. He says, I don't need somebody educated by man. I need somebody educated by Jesus himself.
That's good.
So I got blessed to become part of a Remnant House, and it's a 1-year program. We bring guys in off street, no matter the age, and even if they don't have addiction, if we can accommodate to them, we will. We help them, and we bring them in. We provide them with daily chapels and daily Christian classes. They have mandatory weekly church service and recovery services, like Celebrate Recovery. I've been blessed to be a part of Celebrate Recovery that just started in Etowah, Tennessee. There's amazing things happening in the Etowah, Englewood, and Madisonville area.
It's awesome.
There is, and God, he's just been good to somebody like me who least deserved it. You know, I tell everybody that I pour into today, and especially people that are praying for loved ones who are in addiction. My mama prayed and prayed and prayed, but it takes more than just the mama's prayer. We as a church have to pray for somebody that we don't know sometimes.
Yes.
Just because we don't know them, that doesn't mean anything. God created them and he knows them. He knows who we're praying for and what we're praying for. It took a church praying for me for God to, not for him to hear, but for him to force action into it, you know. And for him to allow me to break my stubbornness and to come to my senses. That's what it took, was a church to pray for a guy they didn't know. And for the family members that have people in addiction and they're praying and praying and praying. I look at Jesus, you know, Jesus was the Son of God, and before he even came out of the grave, it took 3 days. Jesus had a best friend, and before he brought him out of the grave, he didn't bring him out the day he went to the grave. He waited 3 days before he went to the grave. So no matter how close you are to Jesus, no matter how close your family member that's praying for you, Jesus will pull you out of the grave when he's ready. He's training us up for something. We're going through it to tell somebody else how to come out of it.
That's right. Absolutely. So now that you've been through it, and you've been through it too, if you were talking to somebody who was struggling, what's the number one thing that you would tell them to encourage them and help bring them to the other side?
From my point of view, my struggle was addiction. So if I came across somebody with addiction, I would tell them, you know, especially being on the drugs we're on, a lot of us are on the run constantly. And if we're not on the run, our minds are steady pacing. And if you would just, you don't even have to take my word for it, open the Bible to Exodus 14:14, or open it to Psalm 46:10. If you'll just sit still, he'll fight for you, and you'll know that he is God and his name is Jesus Christ.
That's good. How about you? What would you tell them?
I would tell them to, because my struggle was addiction too, and if you treat, even if you ain't a big reader like me, I wasn't a big reader, but I'm a huge prayer. And if you treat God and Jesus like, put in the time to them like you did those drugs, I mean, just give it a week and you'll feel something, you know what I mean? Just keep praying and keep asking, and he will